welcome back to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe on all of those social medias. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, Light Style Studio for our studio here. And as you guys know, we always bring in a different variety of people all across the entertainment world. And today is no different. Today I have the band High Desert Habit with Eric, Cassandra, and Oren. Guys, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, man.
Before we do get rolling into whatever we're going to talk about here, go ahead and promote your socials, where you'd like people to follow, anything like that.
We're actually real simple. If you just pull out your phone and on your Google bar, type in High Desert Habit, you'll come across all our social medias. We got Instagram, we got Facebook and stuff. We're working on a TikTok. I have a personal TikTok that you can find at eMerciless, where I promote a lot of the band stuff. But we are getting on more social media. We're not working on a Twitter yet just because we're very self-sufficient, and so being that, we don't have the time to run that many social media pages.
Yeah,
but we're
and also,
working
is
on
it Twitter? Is it X? What is
right.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing?
Now it seems a little late to jump on that boat, you know?
Yeah. Like, I'm going to Twitter, and all the kids are like, Twitter?
Yeah.
Get out of here. I'm trying to get more involved on TikTok myself.
Yes, it's a great platform.
The only time I do is when my kid reminds me that she's been on TikTok, or my dad will send me endless videos.
Yeah.
He's just on it constantly.
I was a TikTok hater for a long time, and everybody's like, oh, you got to get on TikTok, you got to promote stuff. And I was like, oh, it seems like such a chore, you know?
Yeah.
And making some of those videos can be actually really time intensive. Mm-hmm. But I've come to the realization that if I just stick to short, simple videos that are good with my time management skills, that I can still create an audience and still be relevant in that platform and not overdo it.
And it helps with people too.
Oh yeah, there's people who refuse to use Facebook.
30-second clips is where it's at anyway.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people who you won't find on Facebook, you won't find on Snapchat, stuff like that. They're only on TikTok, or they're only engaging on TikTok. They might be on Facebook, but they're just scrolling past everything. But when they get to your TikTok, then they're commenting, then they're reacting, then they're sharing your videos, and that's
very
a huge help. With the way algorithms work today, I mean, I hate to be that guy, because for the first few years we did music, I just wanted to be like, oh, social media sucks.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary evil. Like,
it helps.
Nowadays, social media and Spotify, everybody hates them, but it's like we got to be on there to be relevant artists.
Yeah. If you want to promote, that's kind of where it has to be found. But to jump back a little bit, how did the band form? How did you guys all get together?
Probably early 2017. We started hanging out in our buddy's garage, where there was a band called the Grateful Eight that was jamming a lot. And we didn't really play instruments at that point. We just hung out and drank beer, and those were our friends, you know. But, you know, if you hang out at a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Yeah.
And so we all picked up instruments and started jamming with these guys, and before we knew it, we had a gig. And it just kind of evolved to that. But the Grateful Eight was an 8-piece project, and you can't tour or rehearse or hardly get along with 8 people.
8 to 14.
Yeah, so...
Man. There was like one time we played with 8 people.
Yeah, when we were on really well. And then, you know, but it just didn't last. So when that project fell apart, those of us that were left were like, man, we want to keep gigging. And so at first we were real awful because we were greenhorns, so... there's a place in Winnemucca called the Winnemucca Pizzeria, and Debbie there that owns it would hire us for a couple pitchers of beer and a large pizza, and we'd clear the place out. But they believed in us there in our community, and they kept hiring us, and we slowly got better.
Yeah. It's how it always starts too. The hope is to get a paycheck. You want that right away, but then the other thing, you kind of have to build. You got to play. You got to get some, and they're like, do you have chicken wings? I like that. It's like, all right, I'll take a little something.
You have on tap.
It's almost like a journeymanship or like an apprenticeship in a way where it's like, you can have some ramen and sleep on the couch till you figure this out and get your certification done. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, sure, that works out. I don't have to pay rent. That sounds great.
It'll work on the job training.
I really like ramen, man. Sure, yeah.
It's like most things. You got to prove yourself.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Earn your stripes a little bit, you know.
So when you guys were starting, you figured this was going to be the trio. Did it start where you already knew it was going to be country music? Did you have a different genre?
We started off actually
start?
as a 5-piece band with a lead singer. Her name was April. She's got incredible pipes. But she was going to school at the time and had a lot of stuff going on. And so we slowly just split apart. It was like too time intensive. And we had a guitar player that also didn't work out. But slowly it showed us with those struggles, like how we could become a tighter band. I started singing because we lost our lead singer, and it completely changed our sound. When we lost our guitar player, we had to do like simpler songs with better songwriting because there's not as much musicianship to cover what we're doing, you know? So we went from doing all these covers at restaurants and bars to like slowly writing songs and, you know, changing the sound. And I think it wrapped around to our background because we're all from Winnemucca. We grew up around country stuff. And so we have a rock sound to it, but a lot of the background in that is country and country storytelling and simple writing, you know, that really shines through in the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask kind of the inspiration when you guys first started. You know, you hear other musical groups or acts or things like that. Did you have something that kind of swayed the way that you guys kind of played and performed? You know, how we were talking Hank Sr. or something earlier. Was there
To me personally, I
anybody
can
in mind?
say that over the last 2 years, we've seen Kenny Fiddler play a lot, and he's got a style that one time he described it to us as, you know, Nirvana meets, you know, Merle Haggard. And it's really cool because it's like this grunge country. He's got a really raspy voice. He's got a way of singing that does remind you a lot of some heavy rock music, but he tells these country stories, and, you know, they're just his writing is really good and involved. And when we watched him perform the first couple times, it was all acoustic, just, you know, him and his guitar, you know. And it shows you how you can have this transgression in sound and performance that can be both. You know, you can have this intimate show with just you and your guitar, and then you can play this huge stage with your full band, and it's like a rockin' show, you know?
Yeah.
So I really dig his sound, and I think watching him play so many times throughout the years and watching how they perform really, I don't want to say like we wanted to emulate that, but it really inspired me to follow a path that's not strictly country or not strictly rock or not following one lane of what
Where
we
it can
have to
teeter.
do.
I guess it just showed us that that was an option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
Because I feel like
opened up.
before it was like you're kind of like that other. It was from Huckleberry Road. It was like people either expect you, are you rock or are you country? Are you hip hop? Are you this? And it's like I think music.
Yeah, it can be a bit of everything.
It's the
Yeah.
vibe from where we would
Yeah.
come from. I hope it emulate
Yeah.
that somehow. You know,
Play what I play.
play what I play exactly.
Yeah, it's like I don't have to be in a specific genre. I can
Yeah.
be whatever you're feeling right
or
now.
a
Yeah.
mix of
I used
both.
to joke that
Or
we played pseudo country rock. People
Yeah.
are like, wait, what?
exactly.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
What?
I like that we can be versatile too. Like our set list ranges from so many different things people just vibe with. So it's cool to have a different sound when you need it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't classify us like I told the last interviewer that we were like more country rock when I feel like it, but I don't know. It depends on the day sometimes. So,
Yeah, you can either be country rocker, then sometimes you might go into folk, or it
Yeah.
could be
Oh, yeah.
you know, like easy listening or
Yeah.
something, like depending
There's a
on.
lot of times we're playing shows, you know, and doing a bunch of like Hank covers or
Yeah.
Merle Haggard or David Allen Coe.
And I like punk rock music, so I tend to play country music
Yeah.
fast. You
That
know,
way,
so-
yeah.
But then we'll close the show out with something like, you know, the Cranberry Zombie, you
Yeah.
know, or something real heavy like that. Or we'll do a really heavy cover of
House of the Rising
House of
Sun.
the Rising
That's a
Sun.
good
And so it just brings that energy up at the end of the show where, you know, people have been dancing and drinking all night. And, you know, it's the same people that love rock music, love country music, love hip hop. You know, there's
Yeah.
not really a pocket for that stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've been to country bars where as soon as the band's done, the jukebox comes on and it's like 50 Cent or something playing and everybody's still dancing because they're just there to party. They're there to have a good time. And so I think that makes it really cool where, like, you can surprise them with this really heavy rock song after you just got done playing some David Allen Coe, you know?
Yeah.
We
That's
do like
always
a
lot of
very,
fun.
very punk rock version of Mama's Broken Heart by Miranda Lambert.
Yeah.
And it's one of the funniest, but also like best things ever because every single person that knows it, every girl in the bar drunk after a certain point, they're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then all their boyfriends are like, oh, that's actually a good vibe. I'll come out, I'll dance with you,
I know,
babe. I'll come
yeah,
dance
yeah,
with you. And
let's
it's
do
like,
it. Yeah.
finally we get a little more movement out there, a little more action. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's the same thing where, you know, it's a little bit less expecty, but it's in the same bubble where it's like, we all grew up with the Pop Goes Punk albums or all these little things or like different covers of this or different covers of that. You know what I mean? To where it's like they're just genre bending it more than they are like trying to make it a different song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not trying to cover it. They're just trying to make it rock or trying to make it pop or
Yeah.
trying to make Katy Perry sound like whatever over here.
Make it
and
more
I
their
think
own.
that exactly. And I feel like that's definitely derived on how we try to emulate our sound where it's like, hey, well, there's definitely many versions or many ways that we could say these lyrics. Which one do we want to make people feel which way?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard a cover where somebody's like, oh, yeah, but I love this version of it.
Yeah.
You know, and they show you a new version and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. You
Yeah.
know? I love that when somebody shows me a new cover of something and it just sticks with me where I'm like, now this is my favorite version of this song. You
Yeah.
know? That's always great.
It's one of those too where it's like the big songs that come out, sometimes you don't even realize they're covers.
Yeah.
Tennessee Whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Never
Well,
even realized
that
that was a cover.
fast car by
Luke Combs?
and
Luke
the new
Combs
one
is
by
the
Luke
one,
Combs.
yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, oh, I love his new song, and it's like, yeah, you do.
It was like I remember in the 90s, kind of when this came out, and it was overplayed on the radio.
yeah, and
Currently,
you're like, I'm getting
over-
deja
over-
vu
over-
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And I love
Huh.
that about covers because we'll joke with audiences a lot of times where they don't know the original artist.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll sing Wagon Wheel and we'll tell them, hey, we're about to do a Bob Dylan song. And then you start singing Wagon Wheel. And oh, that's Darius Rucker.
This is
oh, that's-
Hootie.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like,
Or you do Knocking on Heaven's Door, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, no, that's Guns N' Roses. We're like, oh, sure. Yeah, we'll do the solo for you.
Right, yeah,
We'll
I
put
got
it in
you,
there to
don't
make you
worry.
feel better.
And
I
like
get it
David
work.
Allen Coe did a bunch of writing with like Steve Goodman and John Prine and stuff. So like you get to be like, hey, here comes a John Prine song, and say, and she never even called me by my name, and people are like, wait, that's a David Allen Coe song. I'm
Like,
yeah,
you're
but
also
the writer's
correct.
credit is John
Yeah,
Prine,
You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's just which version did you hear growing up as a kid,
Yeah, that's
Or those
true.
the other way around where you hear a version of something, you're like, I never really like this song, and then the original comes by,
Oh,
and you're like,
yeah.
where's
Just like
this
Tennessee
been all my
Whiskey,
life?
back
life?
on that one, that's got
Yeah.
a different swing to it. You either like the
Completely
swing
different.
or you like the original.
Yeah.
Or you like both.
Yeah.
Or you don't like any.
You just turn it off and go to your easy listening station or
Right.
something, But that's cool. I always like covers, and when people decide to do them. So you said Zombies by the
Yeah,
Cranberries.
that's a
It's
fun,
always
fun
fun,
one
yeah.
to do.
Do you have any other ones that kind of come to mind that you pull out at the drop of a hat that you like performing?
Oh, I like Mary Jane's Last Dance
Mary
as a
Jane's Last
cover,
Dance
just
is
because
a
everyone
fun
knows
one.
it. I feel like it gives a representation of, or not a representation, but like a jumping point for people to hear a sound, hear something familiar, and then associate it with, okay, this is what these guys are going to sound like. You know what I mean?
Right, the
Gives
ones
that little
nobody
bit.
expects, like that
Yeah.
Robert John and the Wreck song that we play is good.
Robert John and the Wreck's
And
a
then
great
Old
band
Friend
to
is
cover.
fun. Or yeah, Old Friend, and then the Smoky or the other one that we played at the wedding.
Rocky-
The Stoney LaRue song.
Yeah, that one's fun
Oklahoma
too.
Breakdown.
Oklahoma Breakdown. Yeah,
That one's
a lot of
fun. That one's a lot of heavy bass.
And we play that one a lot, and people always tell us, "Oh, we never hear anybody cover Stoney LaRue." So that's another really
Yeah.
fun thing that we like to do is we cover a lot of our friends' songs or like artists that we've played with or traveled with or seen at small shows where most people don't know. And we cover a lot of like Benjamin Todd, Matt Heckler, our buddy Hunter Osler out of Antelope Valley. We cover one of his songs.
Love that song.
Our buddy Dan Domingo out of Arizona, we cover one of his songs. And so, like, you're doing covers, but there's still, like, songs that people haven't heard.
Yeah.
And they come up and they're like, oh, did you write that song? I'm like, no, you got to check out my buddy's SoundCloud. Or you got to check out my buddy's
Here's a link.
Spotify.
And then everyone's
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're huge
mixing and
supporters of that.
marketing.
We love supporting our other friends who are also doing this. because
Getting them
I
a
feel
few
like-
plays on the road, too.
Yeah, you don't get enough of that out in the real world. Like, if you're an electrician, for example, if you sit down at a bar with your electrician buddies and you guys get to talk shop, it's like, oh man, today at work was rough, or this happened, or I can't believe the contractor did that. Or the
Listen
drywall
about
guys,
this client.
the drywall guys covered all our holes again,
Yeah.
And so I feel
Actually
like with
had that not
musicians,
too
you don't
long
get a
ago.
lot of
Exactly.
so in musicians, because it's a job where you're not surrounded by your coworkers, you don't get to talk shop a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you're surrounded by other musicians, where you actually get to sit down, have a beer, and be like, "This happened to me on the road," and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe that happened to me 6 months ago," and stuff like that. It's just a great feeling. So we do love collaborating with other artists. We love hanging out with other artists, playing with other artists. It's just fun.
Yeah, I have the same sort of thing when it comes to like the acting standpoint. When me and another actor get about something and we're talking about our time on set
Yeah.
or something like that comes on and you see the eyes get wider and you're like, oh yes,
Like you
But
feel what I'm saying. Yeah.
finally. And then I say something like, there's a line that all actors say that's just hurry up and wait. And the amount of times people are like, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that pain.
Yeah.
I feel that pain so much.
Oh yeah.
And I love it. Anyway, I could go on about acting.
Oh,
Just the
that-
same.
No.
Do you guys have? You said you like the collaborating and with your buddies. Is there a dream collaboration that ever comes to mind? Like I was thinking earlier when talking like teetering the line of kind of bouncing back and forth from different genres. Like the biggest one now is like Jelly Roll.
Oh, yeah.
Jelly Roll was a rapper.
Yep.
And he still does it. Like I heard him from Tech Nine a long time ago. You're supposed to be on silent.
See, that's what we were talking about. I was afraid it was going to be mine first.
That's what it was.
He's like, oh,
perfect.
something helpful. But yeah, like Jelly Roll,
Yeah.
how he was a rapper and then now he's one of the biggest names in
Yeah,
country.
just won a couple CMAs.
You know?
It's kind of funny you should mention that because when I was younger and rebelling against all the country lifestyle and wearing boots and stuff and all the things that made my parents angry, I got super into hip hop and I was a hip hop head and you know I got into production and rapping and writing because I've always been into poetry no matter what. Like even in English in school when I was like 6th, 7th grade, I was always into poetry. And so when I got heavy into hip hop, I started writing and producing my own songs. And so I have a SoundCloud out from like 15 years ago that has over 100,000 plays on it. But then, like I said, as you get back to your roots, it's like I reached a point where that wasn't really satisfying me like spiritually anymore. It wasn't something that created me. It didn't make me hungry to be creative anymore, if that makes sense. And so I slowly not that I slowly walked away from it. I'm still very proud of that time in my life, but it was just something that I was like, I can't keep doing this because it feels fake or it feels forced.
Right.
And I mean, people still play those songs. They still share links every once in a while. Somebody's like, oh, dude, look what I'm playing in my car. And I'm like, dude, that's
Still
so
have it in
cool,
my
dude.
car.
Like,
I
that's
still have it
badass.
in my car.
And I absolutely love that. But I think a lot of people in my generation went through that transition where you grow up in a small town with country roots. But then you see 8 Mile or, you know, you grow up with Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
One of my first albums that I bought with my own money was, you know, Dr. Dre's Chronic 2001. It was like life-changing, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, Snoop Dogg's albums were life-changing to me. And so I think back on that, and I think a lot of people went through the same changes where they were rebelling against wanting to grow up in a small town. And I remember that feeling of growing up in a town of 8,000 people, and I can't wait to get out of here. You know, I thought it was the worst thing ever. And now I'm like, I moved back, and I'm like, this is the best place to be, you know?
Yeah.
Everything's slow and relaxed, nothing's expensive. I'm like, it's not fast-paced at all.
You always want to
So,
get away, and then once you get away, you're like,
Yeah.
I'd like to
Spend
go
a year
back.
away.
Yeah.
I
And
like
so-
small and away from people.
Yeah, and so I think I had left hip hop like right when I started hanging out with this other band, the Grateful Eight, and they had kind of invited me in to see if I would like freestyle over their stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna pick up a guitar instead. And they were
He's like, I'm
"Oh,
gonna learn how to
no," you know?
solo.
Yeah.
They're
And
like,
so-
oh, we thought you'd rap.
Yeah, so and I've actually always loved Jelly Roll. I listened to Jelly Roll. I remember the viral video he had where he rapped for 10 minutes in a hotel room, like him and his buddies
Oh, yeah,
like
I saw
smoking weed in a
that.
hotel
Yeah, yeah.
room, and he
That was
blew
one of
up
the-
after that. And that was like he was with Haystack and Struggle Jennings, and the Yellow Wolf found those guys and brought them up to Eminem's record label, but they ended up signing with Tech Nine. But I just remember that whole transition and seeing Jelly Roll get famous, and now he won a CMA at 39 years old.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, that is mind blowing. Yeah, CMA.
A CMA, not
And,
exactly.
And then his
right?
speech was incredible where, you know, in his speech he talked about like how you're never too old to do this. I have so many
Yeah.
friends, like me personally, I'm 36, and they're like, oh, if I was your age, I wouldn't be traveling around sleeping in
They're
motel
like, oh,
rooms
I'd
and
probably
being in
start having
bars and
kids
stuff.
by
I'm
now.
like,
and,
but the thing is, it's like he said in his speech, it's never too late. And I feel like that's exactly how I feel. Like, I picked up a guitar at 30 years old, and here 6 years later, like, we cut an album.
Yeah.
You know, we've done this summer in 12 weeks, we did 30 shows across 6 states, and it felt incredible
great,
to
yeah.
just be packed in a car, traveling around, seeing our friends. You know, a lot of ways that we got.
the packed part, yeah. But all the
Well,
rest of it.
Doing it was great.
To
Yeah.
me, what was incredible about that is how we built that tour is we reached out on Facebook and just said, hey, where do you guys want to see us next year? And we had so many friends that had moved away to different places. We're like, hey, come play with this town, or hey, come play where I live.
Yeah.
Just reaching out to different bars and venues
Hey,
where they
I'm
hung
best
out.
friends with this bar.
We're like,
over
hey, we know
here.
this guy
He'd
that told
be
us to hit
great.
you
They
up.
love music. And
Yeah.
Yeah, and we built up the tour like that and got to see so many of our old friends, and
We
it was
met
cool, you know?
promoters
we
on
met
the
more
way.
promoters that way.
Yeah. That's how, I mean, so many little things come together like that when, you know, organically when you're not trying, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's so cool to see that, you know?
Because you're still trying and you're churning
Yeah.
and you're making it known that, hey, I'm still doing this. I'm still loving it, having fun. And then other people are like, well, come on down.
Yep.
Let's get a show going.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
do it.
Let's
And
do
then you get new fans from that too. Because as you're sitting there performing to an audience of somebody that you know, then other people will come on and be like, man, I like this
Sounds
sound.
good.
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
I like what's going on here.
Yeah, and I dig that. Like I said, something built organically like that by, I don't know. It is, like they say, luck is half preparation and half being where you need to be at the right time, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just great to have that network of people who want to work with you and mention your name and do all these things, because in the long run, it helps so much, and it has helped us a lot. I feel really blessed to be able to even be here right now talking to you, man. Like, otherwise, you know, a lot of people wouldn't be seeing this, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think about that with the age thing whenever that comes into play too. I just turned 30 last month and try to think about it. It's like, well, a lot of the actors that come in and start, they're kids or teenagers or they're in their early 20s or something. I kind of started around them, but nothing's like skyrocketed. Then you think about Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
He was 41 when
And
he
he's
got
like a
Star
hunk
Wars.
icon for all old little ladies in our houses.
Oh, not even old little ladies.
I mean, every single
my
one.
wife.
I mean, hey, my wife, hey.
We bring up Han Solo, and she's like, "Ooh, we should watch Indiana Jones."
Exactly,
Right.
hey.
What are we doing? Like, I'll be a hunk. It's fine. She's
Never
like,
really been into whips, but with that
You're not
guy.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
Get
No,
out.
it's funny. That's funny. You're not Han Solo.
Like,
Yeah, Tim the Toolman Taylor. That guy was
Honestly, yeah,
selling
Tim
cocaine
Allen.
until
Tim
he
Allen.
got discovered. You know, yeah,
And
Tim
now
Allen.
he's the
Tim
Santa
Allen.
Claus.
Yeah,
Like,
now he's a Santa Claus. He's got a whole
Talking about
franchise
another
behind
guy,
him. You know, that's pretty incredible to think about. Though there's a lot of actors like that.
yeah, which is one of my biggest like inspirations.
But I think if you think of some of the smaller ones, the younger ones that are born or not born, but yeah, born and raised in a sense, or childhood actors, not many of them are doing too well at this age. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's probably better to be a older teenager / young adult doing that, and growing into it and learning all of the games. When you're able to have a body autonomy in the first place and say, no, I don't really like that role.
I don't
or,
like doing
hey, I don't
this.
really like that line. That's literally, you know what I mean? Whatever it be, compared to, no, sweetie, shut up. We're getting a paycheck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, Disney loves you. Shut up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm like,
Compared to...
That's great, but I also, I like sleep.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I'll
Or
do
even
these
then,
night
as
shoots,
back
but-
to the kids things, it's like, how many of them have a normal high school thing? It's like, now you've at least had social interactions. You're not an awkward person.
Yeah.
I think
you
it
know?
kind of helps in the long run because you get that little bit of maturity as it comes through it, and you're like, okay, I've had my wild 20s.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm doing what I want to
Exactly.
do.
Yep.
I'm a little bit older. I like a good bedtime when I can. It's
yeah.
like I think about things and it makes it more worth it
Yeah.
in that way too. Even though you can get those naysayers that are like, "Aren't you old?"
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and I
but I'm doing
definitely
what I
joke
love.
about that because I tell people like, man, through my teens and 20s, I was a hellion. I had a rap sheet a mile long. There'd be no way that I would be responsible enough to be touring on the road with the band, and there's no way.
Making it to the next town on
And
time.
being
you
and
know?
being business minded about it because that's another thing. I
Yes.
know a lot of
Financially
artists
responsible.
who are so passionate about what they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you lose your sense of business or why you're doing it in order to pursue your passion, I mean, I've seen a lot of people just in the last 5 years that lose their way. It's easy to lose your mental health, lose your finances, lose so much like friends, family by pursuing your goal in a wrong, unhealthy way, And I'm not saying like, oh, you shouldn't pursue it. I just mean, if your friends are saying, hey man, you look like you should use some sleep, or hey, you've been doing nothing but traveling lately, are you okay? Like all these things, when other people start to notice that you're getting run down, it's probably a sign to like slow down a little bit, And a lot of times people who are really, really passionate, that's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with that. But I met a lot of people who get burnt out because they're so passionate about what they love doing that they lose focus on how to get there.
Then you get sick of it too.
Yeah, and then it starts to feel like a job and it's brutal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Gotta balance.
Got to find the balance.
Yep.
Which is always hard
It's
because
like
you
life.
never know.
Yeah.
Never know what's coming. So on the note kind of about gigs, the couple that you guys have started across, the 6 states you were saying and everything, what's been one that has stood out to you either for the way the crowd was, the way your performance was? Do you have one from like a recent tour or something that kind of
I
sticks out
had
to
a lot
you?
of fun. We played a place called the Quarter Mile Bar in
that felt so fun.
Yelm, Washington. And
Washington.
yeah, and it's a little town south of Tacoma. It's like an army town. There's a base there. And so like I don't know, it's one of those things where if the town's small and people are kind of bored, they don't have a lot to do, when you go and play there, it's like everybody comes out of the woodwork to see music,
Yeah.
And so it made it really fun. And that a couple of our buddies from high school were in surrounding towns, so they drove to Yelm to come watch us and surprised us.
Oh, that's cool.
And when you're 16 hours from home, you don't expect to see one of your close friends from high school at a show, much less just randomly walk through the door and be like, hey guys, I'm here,
I heard you guys were going to be around.
Yeah, and then our buddy Pat let us fucking crash at his house. That was awesome.
fun.
And it was so cool. It was literally hanging out with one of your buddies from school, having beers. It just felt like,
Going
man, I
jam,
wish this
yeah.
night could last forever, reminiscing about old high
Like
school
the
stuff.
second time I ever met the guy and I'm sleeping on his couch.
Yeah, and it was,
Yeah, it was
oh
great.
man, it was just such a fun night. Like, it wasn't one of those shows where I'm like, oh man, we played to 5,000 people. I mean, we've played to big crowds and done some
They
pretty cool
probably like
stuff.
20, 30 people
But that
at
show
bar
just
max,
felt,
but-
it felt like home
That's
when
when
you're
it
so far
stood
from
out.
home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody was so friendly and nice, and we're looking forward to going back next
Definitely
year.
give the
Yeah.
anywhere small town bar vibe in such a good way where it's like you walk in and whether that bartender knows your name or not, she's gonna treat you like she does. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like really good, and it's not always positive, but it's always super great.
Yeah.
It's always the best time.
They're still gonna treat you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Have
was
fun.
one show that it was way in the beginning. We still did not sound quite sharp yet. We were still learning some good covers and some solid things, but we ended up getting able to play at the Lakeview 100th year rodeo, the roundup I think is what they call it, and it was great. Yeah, there was a gentleman that drunkenly went past the security guards with his his horse in the bar area that we're at. Rides his horse on the
You're
dance
jamming
floor,
and he just rides his
dances
horse
with
on
his
the dance
horse
floor.
like on the dance floor,
His
kicking
horse,
up
like, twirling.
dust and wood chips everywhere. And I think there was another time some gentleman ended up dropping one of his guns and discharged, and it was like, oh, okay, are we good? And then
Yeah.
the venue's owner's like, you're fine, keep playing. It's like, I don't know if we're good. It's like, I think we're fine.
Like, do they like it or do they not like it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
What's
exactly.
going
It's like they were
on here?
dancing so hard, they loved it. You know what I
Sometimes
mean?
they're
That kind of
partying so
thing.
hard you can't tell.
Exactly. And those are some of the two ones that was really fun, really up there, was having a horse dance on the floor and getting called out by security. And someone dancing too hard, they chopped their firearm. And I was like, oh wow. I don't know if you should be in here,
That's some
buddy.
honky tonk shit right
That's
there.
some
though.
outlaw shit sometimes,
The
yeah.
smaller venues are usually always funner.
Oh, yeah.
Like more
that
intimate,
real
yeah.
tight knit.
Oh,
Everybody's
man,
been
yeah.
I always
there
think
for
of
a
the
while.
Nevada and
outside
Battle Mountain
circus
as one of
show.
my favorite locations
yeah.
to ever play. It's definitely small town, definitely close knit. You know, it's the same bartender that's been there for probably the last 15 years. I'm not even sure how long she's been there, but she acts
Since
like
it
she's
opened,
been open
yeah.
that place. Yeah,
Mama Mary, she's awesome.
she'll beat you if you don't eat
Shout out
the
to
cheese
Mama
after
Mary.
she made it for you. You know
And
what I
then
mean?
you
Like,
hear
she's
someone
an
in the back
amazing
like,
lady.
y'all better eat that cheese.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She made it for you, you
She's
better
like,
eat
I
it.
made you bratwurst
That's
in the
the
back. And if
truth.
none of them are
Yes,
missing,
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
yelling at
Yeah,
you the next
yeah.
time you come to the show. And it's like, you're right, man. You're right. Take
Oh,
two
yeah.
sausages with me. Like she's an
like,
amazing
goddamn
lady.
right.
We
so
played
that's not a place.
we played a tiny bar in Denial called the
Oh.
Diamond Inn one time for they have a charity roping out there and a rodeo. And so it was a 2-day event, and the first night we played in the bar, and the second night they had us out on a trailer in front of the bar.
It started raining.
And after that weekend, we went to leave on Sunday.
drank
We went to
them out of
pack up
vodka
all
or
our
something.
stuff, and
yeah, we
the
drank
owner
them
of the
out of
bar was
vodka.
telling us that we made it so that they drank that Denial bar out of vodka and tequila in those 2 days. And he was just like, "We've never had that happen." I was like, "Dude,
Sorry.
that's
I like
awesome."
the
We're,
tequila.
yeah, and it was a killer weekend out there. And those venues are cool because like Denial is in the middle of like it's near the border of northern Nevada, and it's just a general store and a bar. Like that's all that's out there,
Yeah.
and then it's surrounded by ranches for like 60, 70 miles. It's
the
right
same
up
thing
near
as
the
McDermott,
Sheldon
too.
Pass. And so they throw a party out there, and everybody drives in for like 90 miles to come in and party.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, this little tiny bar is packed in with like 100 cowboys, and
People
everybody's
dancing
dancing.
outside in the park,
yeah, there's the
dirt
porch
parking
has
lot
people
area.
dancing on it and stuff, and it's just so much
Doesn't
fun,
even
man.
care.
So great.
Oh yeah.
It's an old school bar where it's like they have all the dollars on the ceiling and all the things. You know what I
okay.
mean? They're still adding to it. So there's layers at this point. You know what I mean? It's,
So I met
it's
that
probably
other
a fire
little kid
hazard.
named Oren.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the first time our Oren, ever met another kid named Oren, and that was pretty cool.
I'm sorry. Did you want?
I'm okay right now. I might hear in a little bit.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
No,
know.
you're
So
all
you
right.
poured
thank
that, and I
you.
was like, that smells good though. Yeah.
We got a whole
Yeah.
plethora of shit here.
Yeah, I
That
might
Glenfiddich
hear
is
in a bit.
I just
That
wanted to
Reno
make sure.
bourbon's intriguing.
The funny on the Oren thing. Never really meet somebody with your name. I
Like
know
3
about
times in my life. I
a
think.
gajillion Steves.
No.
Yeah.
Normally, if I'm on a job site, somebody has to be like, "Wait, you're Steve or my Steve?"
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's the other
Steve,
Steve.
Steve A or Steve B?
Or is it Steve with PH? Or is it Steve? Yeah, what are we? Or
Stephen,
Stephen? Stephen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's Steve. Yeah, but he's Steve too. Fine.
Like he probably knows.
Yeah, I
like
don't think
billionaires.
we've only met like 2 other Orens, and they were little kids.
I know like 3 other Cassandras. The lady that interviewed us last weekend was another Cassandra. I think it was a Cassandra, and it was Sandy. That's why. But yeah, Cassandra. Yeah, that was the first.
Yeah, we were
other
just in
person that I
Elko
met
last
as an
week
adult that had a
on-
Cassandra.
I like when
name.
people do nicknames like that too. It was
I like
Cassandra,
that.
and then
Somebody
they go
tried
by
to do that
Sandy
with
or
me, but I was
something.
like, it's not the wrong
It doesn't fit.
pronunciation. It doesn't work. Yeah, I'm like, thank you. I love that. I would love to be Sandra D with you, but I'm not. You know, I'm so sorry.
We've got a line at home from Greece that
Yeah.
I heard from a stand-up comedian where he goes, "Sandy, you can't walk out of a drive-in movie."
Yeah.
And I know that's not the right line, and it's how it goes. But every time something happens, I'll say that to my wife, and she just goes, "Shut." I'm like, "But you can't walk out of a drive-in movie," and she talks shit at me. I'm like, "Sandy,
That's hilarious.
Every
Always
time
the inside
I
jokes
hear
are
that
perfect.
every time I hear that name, I can't help but think about it. But I like when people do weird nicknames like that. Like my nickname since I've been 12 has been Scuba.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
Steve.
Scuba Steve since I
That's
was
funny.
a kid. And so now it's like how you said where you see friends and stuff pop up.
Oh yeah.
I'll get different things where I'll do a commercial or something will happen and just random family will
A little
text
Snapchat
or
and
send
send
me
it,
and they're
yeah.
like, Scuba's on the TV.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's
It's
always a
one of
great
my
feeling.
favorites. I'm like, please don't show me that again. I hate seeing
do
myself
that.
on TV. Please don't.
Oh,
I love
man.
doing it. Hate seeing it. you
Yeah.
know? So what do you guys have coming up for, like, do you have another tour kind of planned going on?
Right now we're wrapping the year up. Our next couple of big shows are actually December 1st. Cheers Tap House in Winnemucca is hosting our Honky Tonks and Tattoo Shop's album release party. Mm-hmm. And so we'll be starting there at 9. Our good friend JT Balaam's going to be joining us down there, opening up the set for us. And then we're probably going to jam some stuff off the album. We have raffles going on. We'll have merch down there. We'll have hard copies for sale. And then the next big show after that, we'll be headed to the Silver Dollar in Elko, actually.
Oh,
Shout
nice.
out to Sam. His bar's awesome.
Love
Yeah,
it.
we love the Silver Dollar down there. It's one of the oldest bars in Elko. It still has a functioning urinal under the
use
bar.
it. He'll yell at you.
Don't use it. He'll yell at you and you get
But
86.
it technically,
But
yeah,
it's
you
one,
can use it
yeah,
as an ashtray.
it's insane that like you walk in there and it's like, oh man, this bar is like from 1860 something,
Yeah.
and so like it's just funny. And his bar is totally a vibe. But we're playing there on New Year's, and we'll have I'm not sure who yet. We have a local band out of Elko opening up for us there. But that should be one hell of a party. New Year's is one of our favorite times to play, and we usually go all out. We'll play till they basically kick us off the stage. Last year we were playing at Bar M in Winnemucca, and I think we ended up playing till about 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was rowdy. It was so
First
much
year.
fun.
The first year, I
4 or
think the
5.
first or second year we
Yeah,
played till 4
till
or
about
5.
4.
The last,
Yeah.
I think it was 2021 or something. We played till. We didn't leave that bar till 8 a.m.
Yeah.
I remember that. I don't
Well,
know when we
and
stopped playing, but it was not too.
Our first 2 years,
sun
we
is
used
up
to,
now.
our first 2 years we used to book a lot of like late night gigs that didn't start till like 10 or 11
Especially in
p.m.
Nevada.
Sure.
And then, Nevada doesn't close. So if the people aren't leaving and they're partying, they're like, hey, play another set, we'll pay you some more. And hey, play another set. And, when you've had some drinks and they're like, hey, here's another couple $100, you're like, yeah, we'll play another set,
Of course
All of a
we'll
sudden
do
you look
that.
at the clock, you're like, God, we've played 6 sets.
And when you go in a mining town, you get buddies getting off of work on their 7 off, and
played
they're
that
getting
one
off of work
song
at
4
6
times.
a.m.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's easy just to stay up another hour. Bill's gonna be here in a
Yeah.
second. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
they're coming on the mine bus is gonna drop them off. They're all gonna come to the bar. Give it another 30 minutes. We'll
Yeah.
just
You
hang out a
see
little
them
bit.
coming in, and it's like nobody left.
Yeah.
It's all
Exactly.
the same.
Exactly.
And you play that long as like you have 2-3 different crowds throughout the night. So you just start wrapping her back around,
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's like, did you guys hear our first song?
No, which
No?
one? Good. We'll start
You
it
got
over.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like the customers have their own shifts in the same way. You know
You
what I
can
mean?
pay
Like,
attention
get
to,
them-
like, you can see who's in the crowd, who's left, like, you can
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
Who's there from
You
after
can
work?
read the
and who's
crowd
just
enough to
getting
just be like, these guys haven't heard this one yet.
Yeah.
They
Or if
played
they
it
did,
last 2
this
sets.
guy liked it. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing.
I
We'll
see
play
us.
that
We're
again.
ready
too.
to tap. Let's
Yeah.
go. That's awesome. That sounds like a really good time.
Yeah,
So
and
you
then-
guys, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and coming into the next year, we usually take January off to book a bunch of stuff, but we're working with a new manager, and he's going to be a huge help to us. And so we're looking to promote a Honky Tonks and Tattoo Shop tour next year.
Oh,
starting in the spring and summer. We'll probably take off in February and do all of northern Nevada, head to Idaho, Oregon, do the Northwest again, and then see what happens after that. We head back to the studio February 10th and 11th to do a sophomore album, and this one will be 10 songs, so we're really excited about that.
Do you have the, not hope, but is it on the agenda to actually perform in some tattoo shops?
This year, yes.
Yeah.
fucking
Like,
sweet.
that'd
Well,
be
and the
sweet.
joke behind Honky Tonks' tattoo shops is that I own a tattoo shop. I've been a tattoo artist for about
where we
18
rehearse.
years,
That's where
and so that's
rehearse
where
at
we
tattoo shops.
that's where we rehearse.
They've
Sometimes,
already
used
been
to it.
doing it.
Yeah.
this
yeah,
whole
it's
time.
like we rehearse in there, we eat in there. Sometimes, that's our load in,
Drink a little too
and
much in
that's
there.
where we do all our load ins on the trailer, and that's where after
Yeah.
a long weekend of playing gigs and we go to unload the trailer, like that's where we rendezvous to be like, all right, I'll see you guys on Monday.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing where like the tattoo shop is such a big
the
part of our
headquarters.
life as far as being musicians because it made it easy to rehearse. us being, 3 people who work all the time, it's hard to be like, well, let's rehearse at my house and piss off my neighbors this week, and we'll rehearse at your house and piss off your neighbors next week. Well, you can do that so many times before your neighbors notice a pattern, and they're already pissed off before you even show up.
This is the 8th time I've heard the song.
Yeah, they're
today.
like, oh man, these guys.
Thursday, these motherfuckers.
Like he will just not nail that solo. God, just get it, dude.
Instead of waiting till at 7 when we start, they're already on the phone. 6:30 with the.
They're like, hey man, can you guys
See
like
you
not
coming.
tonight?
Can I make a request, please?
Yeah. So once I got that tattoo
Stop.
shop, I mean, the whole front of the
Advertise.
tattoo shop that I have in Winnemucca is like it's like a music shop. People walk in, they think that I'm selling gear in there.
Like 2 pianos,
Yeah.
7,000 guitars.
There's just so much gear in there.
Oh my
But
gosh.
we, like I said, that place has become our second home. And our other second home is these honky tonks and bars and
Yeah.
casinos and smoky rooms and people's basements and back alleys. Like, if you pay us, we'll come play. We don't care what the event
Random
is. And,
garages on a
we
ranch
play
in the middle
biker
of nowhere.
events. We play ranch events, rodeos. We play ropings. Rodeo Calcuttas will show up after the auction and play. There's all sorts of stuff where we basically just won't say no. Like, if you have an open date for a gig and you love how we sound, we'll probably show up to play.
Especially if you make it sound really convincing, where you're like, "Hey, we'll definitely give you some food," and I'm like, "I love food."
Oh man.
So,
Did you say food?
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
it.
Wow,
Yeah,
I'm
if you give us
there.
free beer and free food plus paycheck, we're there.
Wait, did you say the water's got ice in it?
Yeah.
Oh,
we
wow,
doing?
Luxury.
fancy in the last place,
Oh, these ice are ice balls, not
Yeah.
cubes.
Is that nugget
I'm
ice?
And even then, with some of the
Yeah.
ranch shows, we have
How'd they
people
get the
that
ice all clear?
they'll set up like teepees for us because they're like, we don't have board or
Oh,
a
yeah.
hotel within 200 miles, but
Yeah,
we
we've
have
stayed in
camping
tents,
gear.
we've stayed in
So then-
campers, we've stayed in
in
spare
garages,
ranch houses, garages,
spare ranch
we've
houses,
slept on buddies' couches, hotels, motels, everything in
Inn.
between. Yeah, exactly. We're like Ludacris up in here. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. When you start cutting your teeth and gigging, we had our buddy Tommy Monson. Huge shout out to that guy. He's such a huge help to us. But he kind of, I came back after a disheartening gig, and we were talking on the phone. I remember we were in Roseville, and we were driving back, and I was talking to him on the phone, and he was just like, "Man, you just got to cut your teeth and be broke for a while. Like, it sucks leaving a full-time job to go gigging because he's like, you're gonna notice the shift in your lifestyle."
Yeah.
He's all, "But you got to buy your teeth, you got to cut your teeth and get in there and just be broke for a while." He's all, "Pack as many gigs as you can this year and see how it feels." And we did, and there is days it feels like work. I mean, waking up at 9 a.m. to drive home from Yelm, Washington, 16 hours.
Unloading. Setting
Yeah,
up,
we've
resetting
made an
up.
art out of setting up our gear in different just it's
Tightest
over and over and
spaces.
over
Yeah.
again. And so stuff like that, it's like, man, he's right. It is a grind sometimes.
Yeah.
But then you get off the stage at 2 in the morning, whatever, and you're glowing and everybody's happy and it's such a good time, and they hand you off a paycheck and you go to the next city and do it all over again. And man, that feels good. And then I get to go home and pay my rent with that. Like, that is an incredible
You know
feeling.
what? Like I always said for so long, like I need to travel more, and like
Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
look,
For real.
Now it's happening.
And another thing we've
And I
done
get
as
to
a
play
band
music.
is this
Yeah.
year I made it kind of a rule of thumb, or I don't know if I'd call it a New Year's resolution, but I said I want to go see as many shows as I can.
With the band.
Because I was always the type to be like, "Oh, so and so's playing in Salt Lake. But I got work and I got this and
We have a show next
Or
night.
oh,
We
there's
don't
a show on
retire.
Tuesday night. There's a show in Reno. We should go watch it. But we gotta wake up early and go to work.
That's a Tuesday. That's such a weird
Yeah,
day.
so this year I was just like, no matter
No,
what,
go.
if we're free and we can afford to go, we're going to go to a show. So this year
check it
we've
out.
almost been to 27 shows just as a band on our time off. We saw Brantley Gilbert and Nickelback. We just
That
saw
was
Me
so
Go the
fun.
Devil the other
Bradley
night.
Gilbert and
that was
Nickelback.
fun.
Yeah, and I mean,
That's
just anything
Foo
we can go
Fighters.
watch.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Fighters.
Just now that I said that, I can't think of anybody we've seen. See,
You saw Kenny Fiddler?
I saw Kenny Fiddler a bunch of
2 or
times.
3 different people at the Cypress here. That was fun. I've heard that
Reckless
they're-
Kelly,
Reckless-
Charlie Watson.
Yeah. that's
Saw Charlie
true.
Watson at the Cypress and the Steelwoods.
The Steelwood,
with Zach Top. We saw
Top.
them.
Zach Top's got a good 90s
And that was
country
such a
vibe.
crazy night. We all
Like,
showed up. It was
love
like the
90s
first night
country.
of October.
Yeah.
So we show up to see the Steelwoods. And it was like you could tell all the bands in Northern Nevada, it was like their first night off summer tour.
No.
Because
Yeah.
we're waiting in line, and Jake Jacobson and the Battleborn Band is waiting in line. And then we look past them, and Huckleberry Road's there.
And
And we're like, yeah, we look past them, and there's
Zach
other,
and Lucy.
Zach and Lucy from Mr. Johnson and Loaded Dice are there. And then Jonah Winchester showed up and stuff. And so I was just like, oh my God, it's everybody's first night off from touring. Like, check us all out having fun for once, you know? It's like,
Except
we're
for
in the
me.
crowd now.
I wasn't there.
You're like, I wasn't there. Yeah, he had to work still, but.
Oh man, but it was just such a cool experience, and like that's one thing that comes from seeing shows is I also see it a lot as research. People make fun of me
I
because
hear about it every time.
It's such a good show, dude.
we'll go to shows and I'll nerd out.
there, right?
I'll like take pictures of the pedal boards and
I
stuff,
do
and I'm
wasn't
checking
there,
out the
yeah.
guitars. I'm
For
such a
real,
like
though.
I'm a gear nerd when it comes to that. But that night it was funny because somebody had pointed out. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Lucy or something. They mentioned that like all the guitar players were like standing in a corner over by the guitar player, and all the bass players were like oohing and ahhing at what the bass player's doing. And then you look at the side stage, and all the drummers in the crowd were on the side of the stage next,
That's
watching the drummer. Like,
funny.
what is he doing? You know,
What's
and
he
so
pressing at
it's
that
like
time?
everybody
What's
went to
it-
see the
yeah.
show, but we're all in there like doing our homework. We're like, what's that guy doing over there? How does he
Instead of
make that
enjoying
like
the
so
show,
cool?
you're like still like researching and like
Oh, yeah.
enjoying the show. It's
Using
so
a
different.
pick? Do they have right drumsticks?
Yeah,
Like,
is
you're
he
just
using a pick?
critiquing
Yeah.
everything
There's
that's
a
going
meme.
on?
There's a
Yep.
meme that goes around a lot on band pages on like Instagram and stuff, and it's a football player, but he's in the crowd at a stadium and he's watching the football game in full gear, and it's like this is what it feels like to be a musician at a show, and I'm like, oh God, that's so true.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys need me to come in right now? I'm ready. I saw the
I'm
set.
like, I'll even
be
carry
ready.
stuff for you
Tag
guys.
me in, tag me in. Like, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Guys,
no.
I've got a pick right here. Let's go.
I got
For
this.
real.
I got this. I promise.
Just buy me a drink. We'll be
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I play for drinks.
Hey.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you guys have been very active, not only doing all the tour, but in the community as well.
Yes.
What, aside from that one show you said where everybody has been off, what's been one, you said you saw like 27 of them. What's been your favorite one so far that kind of has a motivative part to it?
I went to Hell's Canyon Jam in Cambridge, Idaho, and watched. It was Casey Sheldon and the Homewreckers, Kenny Fiddler and the Cowboy Killers, and Reckless Kelly. And the two kids that opened up for him were Dylan and Tyler Vance out of Idaho. And they were just so phenomenal, but it was such a small town like music festival that you got to hang out with the bands afterwards and stuff. Like I went and grabbed a bucket of beer and just went past the security gate. I was like, hey, Kenny, how's it going? He's like, hey, what's up, man? And it's like security didn't try to stop me or nothing. We ended up having cigarettes and talking for a while. Then they got done playing. We watched Reckless Kelly play. Then after that, their guitar player at the time, Ghost Town Jones, he's all, hey, man, you guys want to go to the bar here?
Ghost
and I was
Town
like,
was cool.
yeah, man, where do we go? And he's all, there's only one bar in town, and it's a block away. Because Cambridge is this tiny little town in Idaho.
The mayor or the sheriff, some
Oh,
dude
yeah.
of
It
significance
turned out the mayor of the town owns the bar.
owns this bar.
And so
the
everybody-
only open bar in town.
Yeah, so you got there and it's like this bar in Idaho, but everybody's like carrying their drinks outside and
And then
smoking in the
it's-
bar and doing whatever they want. And I was like, wait, we can't do that here. And they're like, oh, the mayor owns it. It's
Yeah.
fine.
And
I was like,
it's
so we're just
Idaho.
having a house party at the mayor's like bar.
And it's Idaho, so as soon as it hits like 1:30, almost 2 o'clock, they start cutting people off, they start doing this. And we're just like, from Nevada,
Yeah.
born and raised, all of us. And so, like, anytime we go out of state, more, you know, especially if it's less than a day or less than that time frame, less than a week, we're just like, what do you mean you're cutting it off?
Such
Yeah.
a
Oh,
culture
did I
shock.
say something to you?
Yeah.
Did I offend you? Why are you cutting me off? And it's like, it's 2 a.m. And I'm like, I didn't ask what time it was. And it's like, oh, I get what you're saying.
Like,
okay.
my drink's
all right.
empty. I'm ready
Exactly.
to go.
I'm like,
What are we doing?
I'll tip you
And,
double.
and that show boggled my mind too, because as we walked into the bar in this place probably like
Oh,
8
yeah.
to 9 hours away from Winnemucca
They're
up
doing
north.
karaoke.
They're doing karaoke, and the karaoke DJ in the corner is a guy named Robert Chase from Reno that I knew like 12 years ago. And so we walk in and I'm hanging out with this other band, and from the corner I just hear, Aaron Mercado, is that you? And I turn around, it's Robert Chase. I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, what kind of parallel universe are we in that I'm like at the right time at the right place?
Yeah.
And he had seen a bunch of our stuff online, so he's doing karaoke. He's all, you got to sing House of Rising Sun, man. And I'm like, dude, come on. And he's all, no, you have to do it.
It's my night.
Yeah, and so after that, it was like we were just hanging out, singing karaoke, drinking shots of whiskey with Kenny and his boys, and man, it was just a fun
Ghost Town,
experience.
yeah, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
It's
And-
hard to say no to karaoke when you're
Yeah.
getting pressured for it.
And you're hanging out with a bunch of musicians who are also killer singers, and they're singing too, and you're like, oh, I can't be lame, you know?
I always get the ones whenever we go out with buddies or something. They're like, all right, we're doing karaoke. I'm like, but I don't want to.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, we're doing it. I'm like,
I don't.
okay.
Oh man, last time we played here was Zach Johnson at Alturas. Shout out to Dennis, he's awesome. We played there, and it was like a late show on a Thursday because it was the roundup, and we went on like at 11. So we got done there, packed everything up. It was like 1 a.m, and everybody there's like, "Hey, let's go to the 2nd Street karaoke bar." They're like, "You guys ever been there?" We're like, "No, we don't know what that is, you know."
Yeah.
And we park off to the side of 2nd Street, and we walk around the corner and walk in there, and it's just this karaoke bar that's popping, dude. And we walk in there, and it was just such a good time, and it was cool to like show up, play a show, and the crowd like takes you with them. They're like, "You're one of us now. Let's show you the local stuff." And we're like, "Hell yeah, this is awesome." We ended up staying up way too late. I think we were at the bar till like 4 a.m. We got back to, we had a room at the Circus, and we couldn't find it. You know, the Circus is a maze inside, and then we wake up at 11. We have to drive back home. We're like, God, how late were we outside? It was just so bad.
We parked at the wrong garage. We parked at the Legacy, the El Dorado garage. We were at the Circus. We had a so we don't walk.
We didn't realize that.
It's not like they tell you.
Yeah, they don't build casinos with like, you know, mall style directories.
They should.
They're just all mirrors and dark. They're like, stay in here for as long as possible.
And then go this way, and then go this way, and then go, and it's like, fuck am I?
Just why?
You just make it to the tower elevators. And I'm like, there's 17 tower elevators.
Casinos and strip clubs, they don't want you to leave.
No.
Honestly, if I get one of those strip clubs with a good buffet, that sounds kind of decent.
Right.
Y'all got mac and cheese? All right, let's go.
And a shrimp and I might be sick later, but I'm probably I'll catch you to something here anyway. So.
Yeah. You know. Like, I'll spend my money on it.
Yeah, I get it. Don't worry.
We're not scared to die.
There's a handful of times. There's a little joint here called Davidson's. Love it. Davidson's Distillery.
Oh yeah.
Definitely little tiny spot there on 4th Street that can get a little rowdy. And every time we go into Guitar Center when we're coming into town to pick up some picks and some strings and the last little bits of things that you need right before you start another show, the dudes are always like, "Oh, we see you here often. Like you doing a show? Where you guys playing?" We're always like Davidson's, and they're like, "Oh." We're like, don't me. Like it's a great place. Like
we
we're
play
like
all those
defending
places.
some place that's
Welcome
supposed
to be in.
Yeah, it's the same thing like when you're trying to
there.
defend the Silver Dollar in Elko, and they're like, "Oh, the place with the journals on the floor." We're like, "They're not usable." Okay.
There's been times we tell people, "Oh, we're playing the Silver Dollar." They're like, "Oh, you mean the Dirty Nickel?" I'm like, "Oh,
You're
shit."
rude.
But like I said, man,
Son of a
we
bitch.
love
But,
playing anywhere. So if somebody reaches out and they want to hire us, we're not too good for any bar. You know what I mean? Like places want music and they're willing to pay and they put you up and they treat you good.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with playing those bars. You know, and especially in musician circles, you get to talking and people are like, "Oh, don't play that place. It's dirty. It's on a dangerous street. It's dark. They don't have good load-in times or this or that." I'm like, yeah, but we're struggling musicians as it is. If they're giving me if they're paying me and that's my job is to go entertain people, I just don't tell people no when it comes to that. You know, if we have a bad experience, a bad manager, a bad venue or something, we're not going to go back.
Then you know for the future.
Yeah, but so far everybody's been so lovely to us and they treat us so good that I'm just like, man, I say yes to 90% of the venues that call us. You know.
And then there's some really broke down venues where they look very, very unassuming on the outside, but when you get in, they're there with, I guess, ice in your water ready for you, you know. But even then, there's a handful of places where it's like, you don't think it might come out of nothing, but they're there with, like, they went 2 towns over to go get you porta subs or a platter of food or to make sure.
They're
and
happy
they
you're
booked
there.
the best hotel in town, which isn't much, but it is the best hotel in town, and they booked it for you and all these little things.
Yeah, we
where
play
it's
like Gills and Hawthorne,
love
and
Gills.
there's nothing there, but they're so nice to us. And you know, the lady goes and gets us a platter of sandwiches from
coming up after every song. Do you need a
Safeway,
drink?
and we
Do you
stay
need a
at
drink?
Motel 6, and they just cater to us so well. And it's such a good crowd because those little towns, like we talked about earlier, like when they don't get that much entertainment, the entertainment comes to town, and everybody comes out of the woodwork to just be excited. And the great thing about that is, like, when you're playing really big venues, you do feel great. It's great to be on a tall stage, have professional sound, have everybody cheering you on. But at the end of the day, like in a big city with a big venue, like that's just their Friday night. Like they went out to see a
They're
show.
used to it,
yeah, they're used to being able to buy a ticket and see a different artist
they could have won
7
those on the
nights
radio.
a week.
Yeah.
They
You
Yeah.
don't know
don't
who they're
care.
saying.
But then you go to those small venues and you kind of talk to them, and that's why they came out. They're there to see you. They're not. They don't have anything else to do that night. They might have gone to dinner before, maybe had some drinks at a different bar. But when they show up, they're not going to leave till you're done playing.
Yeah.
And that's such a cool feeling. And then those small places are the places where you can hang out afterwards and have a beer and sign the CD you just sold them and take a picture with them and their kids, and like they're having the time of their
Or
life.
they
You
close
know.
the grill down an hour, but you're like, fuck, I'm really hungry. They're like, we'll put it back on for you. We
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
They're
What do you want?
like, what do you want? Don't tell them we're turning the grill on, though, but what do you want? You know, little things like that.
They're cool
There's this little
about it.
spot there in Golconda. It's the only bar in Golconda. It's called the Watering Hole #1.
Water Hole.
And it's an amazing little spot. Love
Man,
it.
they got great burgers.
Bomb
Like,
food.
Bomb
Yeah.
food.
The
great
food is
burgers.
great.
amazing hospitality. And it's only 15 minutes from Winnemucca.
It's
but
the most
also,
unassuming place. Like, you drive fast down the freeway, and you're like, who the hell would stop
But then
here?
there's
You're like, why?
There's a lot of cowboys and a lot of ranchers that live just a couple 100 miles from the
Yeah.
watering hole, but going another 15 minutes to 20 minutes to Winnemucca, that's kind of a little bit too much. You know what I mean? You're driving on the freeway. I've already been
Stopping right
drinking, dealing with cows all day. I don't want to get on the freeway. But they'll drive on a dirt road all the way to the watering hole and hang out all night and do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like it's the middle of nowhere little spots, little dive bars, little watering holes, literally, little oases where it's like, wow, you're going to meet people and hear stories of somebody who has not been to town in 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to hear some shit you probably shouldn't be listening to. It's amazing stories. Even then, it's like, you're always going to be able to find a cow dog to pet. You know, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, just coming out of nowhere.
Exactly. He might
like
bite you,
slaughtered.
but you can pet him too.
Y'all got any more of them chicken fingers? Or?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
He's a little vacuum.
On the fact that you guys have a new album coming out, go ahead and just tell me a little bit more about if there's a inspiration or something behind it, or like some of your songs or anything.
A lot of the songs on this EP, again, I love that it happened organically. They were written kind of over time because it was originally our hope at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 to self-produce an album. That was originally what I had wanted, was to just get a Tascam. We'd record our own songs. We were originally shooting for 10 songs. But then COVID happened, of course, and everything stopped. So we almost didn't play for, I don't know, like 8-9 months. And then when we did start playing, it was scattered, super scattered. So we went from, there was a year we did 48 gigs, and then the following year we did 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And it was really disheartening, and just trying to find anybody who was interested in recording or anything like that was just a no-go. And so leading into 2021, we started working, our friend Tommy Monson, who is the drummer for Jake Jacobson's Battleborn band, he moved back to Winnemucca, and he started working with us a little bit on songwriting and composition, and then he wanted to record some stuff. We started working on scratch tracks and stuff, but then his Tascam got ruined, and we lost everything. Which, you know, that sucks, but the songs were still in my head. I felt bad for him for his Tascam. And then about another 9 months went by, and we didn't approach the idea again. And one night, me and Cassie were here at the ranch house with Zach watching a Core Blunt show. And he introduced me to a guy named Tim Blake and said, he told Tim, he's like, hey, you need to come watch these guys. They're pretty good and stuff. And he gave us a good word. Tim came out to watch us and gave us his phone number and said, hey, send me all your links and we'll see what we can do. So I shot him all his stuff. He sent him over to Zach, and then I didn't hear back from him for like 3 months. So I was like, oh, they didn't like our stuff, you know, not a big deal, whatever. You know, you get used to that. You got to have thick skin in this industry.
Kind of a thing.
And so I was like, you're going to send
hear from us.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay.
In my mind, I was like, we're going to send it out to 1 million people before anybody hits us back up, you know?
Yeah.
But then summer kind of was starting to come to a close, and out of nowhere, Zach hit me up and was like, hey, when could you guys come in? We really liked your guys' stuff. We're willing to work with you guys with what you guys want to do. And I told him at the time, I said, we want to cut it live, and nobody will let us cut it live. Everybody wants to multi-track. And I said, we're new at this. What makes us passionate about this is
multi-track at least.
Yeah, I said what makes us passionate about this is everybody loves how we sound live. We're very rowdy, we're loud, we're, you know, fast-paced. Yeah, I'm like, we want to translate that into an album. We don't want it to sound overly produced and perfect, and I don't want to auto-tune on my voice and
Not
stuff.
overly polished.
Yeah, I said, I want everything to come across how you hear it in the room. And they were like, well, people haven't really done that since the 60s, but if you guys are tight and rehearsed, we'll give you guys a shot.
We'll try it.
And luckily, we had just come off summer tour, so
The whole album.
yeah, so we were
day.
very, very tight and very rehearsed. And so when we walked in there, we did the first cut around like 10 in the morning. And right after that, after the first cut, he's all, no, you guys just keep rolling. We're going to do all 7 songs. You're good to go.
So you guys good with that one? No?
And
Okay,
so,
second track.
yeah,
Let's go.
we had
He asked
12
us if
hours.
we wanted a break at one point, and I was like,
Yeah, we didn't
And I was
want.
like,
We didn't
no,
even take
we're
a
kind of
break.
close to being
We're
done. If we take a
rolling.
break right now. I'm
We had
just
12
gonna-
hours in the
yeah.
studio, and we started at 10, and by 1 p.m. we had cut all 7
I was gonna say
songs.
2. Yeah, that's
Wow.
And the guys were actually kind of blown away. They gave us lots of props for how tight we were. They said most people can't pull this off and stuff. And so we were ecstatic because everybody had told us no at this point. Like, that's not possible. People don't record like that anymore. And we're like, man, we just want to sound how we sound in the bar, you know?
Yeah,
And
just
these
without
guys
the bar
and,
there.
and you know,
without the people yelling. Or
yeah,
something going
and
on.
huge shout out to Zach Damon and Toby Seuss
Yeah.
from Tin Roof Recording because they
Seuss,
are
yeah.
amazing.
And Zach.
And they worked their magic. They did an incredible job mixing and mastering because, I mean, I've never done it before. I don't know what entails that, but I know mixing a live album is a nightmare for most people because of the bleed and all this stuff. And they have such a
they
nice
killed
setup
it,
there
dude.
in Fallon, and they took care of us, and they were super good hosts
Yeah,
all day. I mean, they sent us to good places to eat. When we got back, they had whiskey ready for us. We hung out all day.
Whiskey and tequila.
You know,
I think
and
whiskey's always just kind of a
yeah, it's
common
like one of
thing.
those things you walk into a studio and they're like,
Tequila,
yeah, hers is
I got a
tequila.
little too there.
But yeah, you walk into most studios and they're like, "Hey man, you want a whiskey?" You know. And they were just amazing that day, and they made the whole process so smooth for us, and we really appreciate them. And we're actually looking forward to going back and working with them in February. That was kind of the deciding factor. Is
Yeah.
we were doing the freshman album with whoever would do it, and then we wanted to explore our options. And we had been to some studios around the areas that kind of just seemed to make. I don't want to say they made things difficult, but they didn't. They weren't as easy to work with when it came to our ideas of how we want to do it. Kind of
They
that
wanted it
attitude.
their
Of,
way.
yeah, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna put you on a click track and do this and that." I'm like,
It
"Dude,
was
we're not good
pretty-
at that," you know.
Like, I'd never been to a studio, but I had the idea of what it was going to be like. And, like, when we walked in and we were like, this is kind of what we want, they were like, basically, they were just like, okay.
Yeah,
think we can do
made
that?
it super
There's a-
easy.
It took a
handful
minute
of
to,
other
like,
people
line
that
things
we-
up, but they figured it out, and it just, it was seamless almost. It was
There's
so,
a
it
handful
was
of
so
other people
cool.
that we started to try to work with, and kind of what Eric was saying was that, like, no, we're gonna each and individually record one of you, do the click track, BPM, all, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And we're
that's
like,
what you
this
would
is what it's
expect,
gonna have to be.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're not opposed to that, but half of the dynamic of all of us playing together is us playing live together and hearing those gives and takes, or hearing those slowdowns and speed ups, and hearing just that little bit of a half a second difference from the bass and the drums, and little things like that to where it makes the song. And if we're doing it on a click track with each and every single one of us not there together vibing in that moment,
It's not
it's
right.
gonna sound robotic.
Not the same.
It's gonna
It
sound,
takes
yeah, it's
longer.
gonna sound, yeah, it's gonna,
Well, and another-
it's gonna take 4 times the amount of
Yeah,
time.
I was about to say another problem logistically. If we're being honest, it's still a business at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we've been
get
gigging
paid
and
by the
saving
hour.
up all this money to go record, if we have to go multi-track and it takes me 2 hours to do all 7 scratch tracks, and then Oren has to lay down all the drum tracks over that, and then Cassandra has to lay down the bass, and then we go back in and delete the scratch track, and I do vocals, and then do guitar over that, and then layer it. That takes 3-4 days, and
Yeah.
really that just starts eating up your budget. And especially when you're green like us, it's like, I'm not great with a click track. I'm not the greatest at like layering solos and stuff, but I am really rehearsed at doing it on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if you guys can just cut it live, we can pay you what it's worth, and if people like it, we will come back to multi-track, and we'll learn the process, and we'll invest more time and money.
Or if they like it a little more, maybe we'll stick with it.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
if it ain't broke, don't fix
But
it.
it's kind of like research and development department for anything. It's like if you put out a product, you want to make sure that product's worth it before you put in millions of dollars into this product and say, all right, now we're going to polish it up and make it what it needs to be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we don't want to do that. I'm just saying, like, logistically, the funds aren't always there to do that. So if we can get these 7 songs done in 12 hours, we'd rather do that than spend 3 days multi-tracking and then the project doesn't sound how we want. That'd be
Yeah.
really disheartening, you know?
Yeah.
So we are very, very appreciative of Zach and Toby there at Tin Roof Recording. They did an amazing job with us, and they were so helpful with everything we wanted to do.
That's amazing. Because exactly what you said. It's like you don't want to put all of your effort into
Mm-hmm.
something, but then because of how things line up, it turns out half-assed.
Yeah. And being a
Or
creative
however
is
it
like,
is.
my friend Pete always explains it, that being a creative person, you only have 100% of yourself to give to be creative. So if you're using 50 of it to learn how to produce and 25 to write, and you're giving 15% of it to your family and time at work and all this stuff, it's like how much is actually left to be creative and sit down and write songs and make them genuine.
Yeah.
So you start freeing up that time. We're like, well, I'm gonna let somebody else produce, and I'm gonna let somebody else do this, and
Somebody else take over.
yeah, and they're good at it. That's their job. That's what their art is producing. So if I let my art meld with theirs, they'll do a really good job with it if I just trust them,
Yeah.
Um,
And if I could bring up a track from what you sent me, am I okay with
yeah,
bringing
no,
up song
yep.
titles?
Yep.
Honky Tonk Heaven.
Yep.
Honky Tonk Heaven. I loved that one.
Oh, thank you so
It's
much.
a good song, man.
Thank you so
It's
much.
one of mine where if I see Honky Tonk in the name, I have to sit there and listen,
listen
to it
to
and
it,
see how
yeah.
it is. And then as soon as I clicked on it, I was like, all right, let's see how this is.
Oh,
Shit, I got to keep editing right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's one of my favorite things to do when
take
I'm
some of that.
going out. Want the depot?
Pour one out for Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song is dedicated and wrote for a friend of these two named Josh Hare. He passed away a few years ago in a car accident
Thank you,
scenes
sir.
around a bend there in northern Nevada area. He He was a cowboy through and through to the bone. He was the most cowboy that of a young man that you would ever know.
He's a day working cowboy.
Yeah,
His parents own a ranch out there in Nevada. They're actually the landlords of my tattoo shop. That's how I got so close with Josh.
His sister, yeah.
I went to high school with his older sister, Tess, and I met Josh. He was this annoying little kid that would just always bug us. But then years later, I mean, we're talking like 20 years later, I end up renting this building from his parents, and this guy would day work out in the area and do rodeos and stuff. And we hung out at a bar right next door to my tattoo shop called the Bar M. And so he'd always call me up, hey, fucker, I'm coming into town. Are you going to be there? Because he knew I was always getting off work around 3 or 4. And so we'd end up having beers and just talking. And we got really close throughout the years. And then we were actually coming back from, I think, Reno. And our friend Anna hit me up.
No, it was your brother's wedding, Portland.
No, that was Tim.
Oh, you're right. That's horrible.
It's all right. And so she had hit me up and just let us know that he was coming back from doing some day work up in Lakeview, and there's a section of road there that coming through that pass, the canyon's pretty windy, and it can get pretty nasty up there. There's like mudslides in the winter and stuff that close that road down all the time.
And if it's just below enough, you could just ice
enough on
and
he ended up rolling his car. So one of the things that always stuck out in my mind about Josh was he rodeoed, and we played a lot of rodeo shows. Mm-hmm. So you end up traveling to like the same areas without realizing. Like we played the Elko Rodeo, and he'd be down there. Yeah. You know, we played the Lakeview Rodeo, and he's like, "Hey, fuckers, what are you guys doing down here?" You know, and he'd run into us all over.
And half the reason we got that game.
Yeah, and then he would always start coming to shows like in Winnemucca, Elko, you know, different areas, and we'd always run into him, and he loved to dance. So that's kind of the chorus in the song is like, you know, he's talking about play a fast one, boys, and he'd grab a pretty girl to twirl her all around, and we'd hang out until the sun came up, and then we'd just be bullshitting, you know. Yeah. And that's kind of what the song is based on, just remembering everything that he was about. And you know, there's a spot in the song where he'd always steal my parking spot because I parked behind my tattoo shop next to that bar.
One spot.
And it's one spot like reserved because I rent the place, and he knew that it was always open. So if he came into town, he's like, "Oh, easy parking right next to the bar," and I'd pull up to work and be like, "Fucker."
He'd pull up to work ready to go like, all right, well, I still got 15, 20 minutes. So I got to be in the tattoo shop to go work. I can go in the bar and go yell at him to switch my spots. And that nope, he was not going to switch spots. He's like, here's a shot, here's a beer. All right, go tattoo. He's like, and here's my keys. Go move it if you want it. Yeah, and it's just old school, you know, small town where it's like, trying to make fun of you at the same time of like, it's not that serious,
they're
bud.
talking shit, and you're like, you know,
exactly.
I love you.
Just being a best friend forever,
And unfortunately, I feel like that's a huge part of our album is, especially this first album we're putting out is, you know, over the last 3 years, I've had to deal with a lot of loss. I mean, in my life, I've had to deal with a lot of loss, but it's always been a reflection of grieving to me to write these things, and you know. And so one of the other songs on the album that resonates with a lot of people is a song called Back Home. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with when you grow up in a small town. You know, we grew up in a town of 8,000 people. All of us were born and bred in Winnemucca, Nevada. And when you grow up in a town like that, you just happen to know everybody. So when somebody passes, you knew them. You knew them. Everybody knows that saying isn't fake. You know, it's real. When you grow up in a tiny town, literally, I remember being an idiot in high school, getting pulled over on the boulevard, you know, and by the time I got home, somebody would call my mom and say, I saw your kid pulled over on the boulevard, you know, and so you'd get in trouble all the time.
You get pulled over by the cop that you went to high school with.
Like, what do you want, Gary?
His dad.
So that song kind of deals with that where, you know, the chorus says, you know, why does it take a funeral to bring you all back home? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of one of the things that resonates with me because all these funerals that I've been to, everybody's like, why does it take this so that we can hang out and actually like go to the bar and have a beer?
Because our lives are so busy. You know,
and it's one of those things.
It's time to go commemorate a friend afterwards.
And so the 3 verses in that song really deal with the growing up aspect of like when you're little, you like hang out close to home and do these things, and then the older you grow up, you go and have beers with your buddies, and you know your first cigarette when you're sneaking it away and getting in trouble for that kind of stuff. It brings you back to childhood, but then the chorus wraps you back to like, oh man, this is real. We're mortal, and at some point your buddies are gonna pass away.
Yeah. All these things that we've done together. Why does it take this to bring us?
And it's like a heavy message, but like the memories are there in the verses, and so I think it's a cool wrap around this. You know, the chorus can be real heavy, but then these verses kind of bring you back to like this was what it was growing up with my buddies and doing these things and going out and making these memories, you know. So I think a lot of the album has to do with that, is like coming to terms with growing up but also you do have that country background and you're from a small town, and these things matter to you, a sense of community and being who you are. Like I said, I rebelled so hard against Western culture and being anything related to a cowboy or riding horses or roping. I remember specifically like being 12 years old and like I was just like, I'm not getting on a horse again, Dad. Like I don't feel like it. I don't have a reason to, you know. And I'm sure,
But your
like
family
looking
was so
back,
bred in it.
yeah, looking back, I'm sure that broke my dad's heart. You know, it was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you know. And you know, my dad and my uncle, they come from a long background of building saddles. They're known for their saddles all over the Northwest and Texas and Oklahoma and stuff. And so for me to say something like that to my dad, that I'm like, I'm not interested in horses. I don't care about
Yeah.
Western culture. I love rap. I want to do hip
Why
hop,
don't
you know.
just spit in my face?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I think back to that, but also those ages where you're like 13, 14, rebelling against your parents, and it means the world to you to be right. You know, it's like I know everything and you don't.
Yeah.
And so now wrapping it back around to like being in my 30s and being like, man, I can't believe I would act like that. You know, it's like mind blowing to me that I was just, oh man, I was
Yeah.
such a shithead.
You think back to it now and you're
Yeah.
like, why?
So a lot of that stuff in those songs has to do with that kind of thing. Like another song in there called Doherty Slide. I wrote it because I was playing bass with a band called Rico Nova out of Lakeview. Coming down that road we were talking about, the 140, State Route 140, there's a section called the Doherty Slide that is a 5-mile stretch that is over 7% grade with no handrails, 2-lane highway.
Oh, shit.
And they close it in the winter. So it was February, I was playing a show, and my buddy Ben Adair, who works for the road service up there, told me it was about to snow. So he's like, you got to leave first thing in the morning, bud.
Go, yeah.
And he woke me up at 8 in the morning and said, hey, man, it's sprinkling. You better get out of here. So I left Adele and started heading towards Winnemucca. And before I knew it, we were going 35 miles an hour on the highway, and it's just blizzarding on me. I couldn't hardly see in front of me. By the time I get to Doherty Slide, I'm doing like 5 miles an hour up this thing in
Yeah.
4-wheel drive. And it was just one of those times where you question your life. You're like, am I going to make it home? I didn't have cell phone service. I was way late at this point. It's a 3-hour drive. It took me 9 hours to get home.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
So she was at home freaking out. And
I
it
thought
was
it was
just...
done.
And what do you do in those moments? You know, I just smoked a joint and wrote a song. I was like, dude, I got to calm my nerves. I got to figure something out.
I
to
gotta
do.
relax a little bit.
Yeah, so I just started
white
writing,
the
you know,
whole
in my
time.
head, going over these lines about what makes this important to me. And at the time, the Suburban I drive, we had started gigging, and back in the day, I'd gotten a DUI, so I didn't have a license for a while. And when I got my license back, I was driving an '87 Buick Regal, which is a beautiful car, but you can't gig in it. It doesn't have no space for amps or guitars or speakers. So my dad had this Suburban that I would borrow on gig weekends. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going to park my car in your driveway. I'm going to take the Suburban. He's like, all right, cool. So that Christmas rolled around, and me and Cassandra were at the house with my parents, and we were opening presents, and my mom just comes over, and she's like, hey, you need this more than we do. And she handed me an envelope, and it was the title of that truck. And it was just like, oh, fuck, you know? And I was like, Mom, I can't take that. And she's all, no. She's all, if you guys are going to be on the road and doing all this stuff, you
She's
know.
like, we're
like,
taking it off the
yeah,
insurance.
she's like, and my dad was retiring,
We're
so...
getting rid of it anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was retiring at the time, so he was trying to get rid of vehicles and toys and stuff. And
Yeah.
he's just like, I don't need payments. I don't need insurance. Me and your mom are going to be chilling, living the retired life, you
Hanging
know.
out, yeah.
So they gave me that Suburban. It was just like, to us, it was a life-changing moment because now we could hook up a trailer. We could go farther. We could pack everybody in the stuff where we needed to
Before
go.
then, every single vehicle and trailer that we were looking at on Facebook, it would be on Facebook Marketplace. You'd have a Suburban or a nice, Sierra truck
van
or
or
whatever, a
something.
van or anything, or even just a U-Haul trailer. Not even U-Haul because they decommission those, but yeah, even just a normal tow trailer. Like anytime that would be up there on Facebook Marketplace for over an hour, and we're at work for 8 hours a
Oh, yeah.
day.
Gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone.
So
So by the
that's-
time someone sends you that link, it's gone.
Yeah, so that song definitely has a lot to deal with that, where it's like it plays with the country cliche of here's a song about my truck, you know. But then you start listening to it, and you're like, this is a song about the connection with him and his dad.
Yeah.
Because it mentions how my dad was wandering around doing day work and doing leather work and stuff, like the wandering part. And then, we wrap it around with the mention of family tradition, which is clearly a Hank line, But he wraps it back around to the country tradition of saying, hey, man, we've been doing this long enough to know
It's a
that Hank
family.
line, and it is this wandering thing. That's why working cowboys don't mind driving 2 hours to work, It's like
Yeah.
you're in big, wide open country. Some of these guys hook up their trailer and drive 6 hours just to go pick up hay,
Yeah.
And so people tell us all the
Or
time,
go do
they're
a rodeo,
like,
they're not even gonna win.
You know?
They're just going because they
Yeah.
love it.
yeah,
They're
so
going to
people
spend
tell us
money.
all the time,
Yeah.
they're like, aren't you guys sick of driving? If I was you guys, I'd move to Reno or Vegas so all the gigs are closer. I'm like, we're used to driving for hours and hours and hours to go
Yeah.
anywhere.
It's nothing new.
When we were
Yeah,
kids, if
growing
you
up
needed to
like
go
that.
shopping, the family loaded you up and took you to Reno anyways to go to Costco and do school
Yeah, you're
shopping and
used to
stuff.
it.
So we're definitely used to being on the road forever. And I tell people, to us, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. Like last week, we interviewed with Sandy Beeler in Elko. And she was like, "Oh, thank you guys so much for making the trip." I'm like, "Dude, this is our backyard. Northern Nevada, I-80, we live on this, you know."
Right there, yeah.
There's people that come and live in Winnemucca, and they're from a lot bigger cities, from even like Austin or Texas or like San Francisco, anywhere, San Jose, any of that area, and they're always like, "Oh wow, like there's nothing here," and I'm like, "Well, how long does it take you to get to the mall where you were?" Oh,
Yeah.
2 hours? Wow, it's 2 hours for the mall here too.
Yeah.
It's just a better drive. It's just more
yeah.
scenic. It's maybe a little bit more pricey in gas, maybe not because I'm not idling on the freeway for
That's
so
true.
many hours. I feel like I get it. We're not tight and packed, and the idea that everything is so far away is present, but it's not that far away. When you really think about everything else in the world, you know what I mean? Like we're pretty close. Like he's saying, like we have buddies that drive 5 hours for hay. Like that's
they're
pretty
10
close.
It's
pretty
not
close.
a deal breaker.
Yeah, when your own ranch is 16 hours long,
Yeah.
not really. When your own ranch is at least 4
It's
hours,
huge, yeah.
4 hours from
long,
town.
driving 5 hours is not bad to get hay
Yeah.
from your neighbor.
Yeah.
And same thing, like a lot of the rodeo kids, to get up in their points, they have to hit up as many rodeos as they can, and in whatever their division is. So if they're doing like PRCA rodeos, they have to hit up as many as they can throughout the Northwest or Southwest, wherever.
Those points.
So there'll be weekends, like I knew a buddy of mine that weekend that we were doing the Lakeview Rodeo, he rode broncs at Winnemucca on that Thursday of Labor Day. Then the Friday he was up in Lakeview, and then Saturday he was in Boise, and then Sunday he was in Elko to make all the qualifiers.
Yeah.
And then you think about how much driving that is.
How many other people are doing that?
From Winnemucca to
Yeah.
Lakeview, that's 4 hours, and then from Lakeview over to Boise, that's 6 hours, and then from Boise down to Elko, that's another
All
6
over the
hours, and then
place.
home again,
Small
all in a
convoy
weekend.
of horse trailers.
Yeah, so you think
see
about
'em
that,
coming.
and it's like, well, these guys can do it. Why can't I, as a
Yeah.
musician,
Yeah.
if
I
they're
don't have a
following
horse
what they're
to feed, I
doing?
just got some
Yeah,
guitars to load.
Yeah, we're just
Exactly.
hanging out jamming.
yeah, we're just
Exactly.
following them to the next stage.
Yeah, we're in between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
We're the horses. Yeah, exactly.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you guys for coming
Yeah,
in,
definitely.
telling the story. Excited to see the album that comes out December 1st.
Yes, sir.
Before we do get you guys out of here, promote one more time wherever you want anybody to find you.
Awesome.
anything
Check
like
us
that.
out on Facebook, Instagram, any social media, Snapchat, TikTok. You can find me at eMerciless. You can find the band at High Desert Habit. If you Google that, you'll find links up.
It's the only High Desert Habit you'll find.
Yeah,
High
we
Desert
are High
Habit.
Desert Habit across the World
Mucktown
Wide Web.
Not Habitat.
If you need to find the production house,
Habit.
we do a lot of booking for artists. We also do a yearly music festival that's 100% for charity there in Winnemucca called Sagebrush Sounds Music Festival. So if you go to mucktownsound.com, that's MUCCSOUND.com.
Well, there's a town
Town.
in there.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Town. MUCCTOWN. Sound.
Yeah. You'll find everything we book, like all the flyers for upcoming shows, anything in Winnemucca or surrounding areas, we post it there. And if anybody's looking for booking in the area, we are on I-80 and 95. So a lot of people that pass through, kind of like a weekday town, same as you guys. If you're passing through and need gas money,
Hey, there's
Thursdays.
yeah, Thursday night shows, Friday night shows. If you're heading to a headliner in Reno or in Elko or something, and you want to do, a Thursday or Friday night show or Wednesday night show in Winnemucca, hit us up on Mucktown Sound or reach out through Facebook, Instagram, anything, and we'll do our best to get you guys a show.
That's great.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you guys for coming in.
Oh, thank you so
speaking
much for
everything
having
up.
us.
You guys know what to do for us here. Stephen Longley, Longley's Line, Light Style Studio for the studio here. We'll talk to you guys next week. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thank you.